Acquiring good defensemen, like really good defensemen, is hard. For most teams, their best hope of one day having an elite defenseman on their back end is by being bad enough to get a high draft pick, and even then, it's not a 100% guarantee. There's a reason NHL GMs love to say, these types of players don't appear on the market often. If you have one, you're not going to give them up for just anything. But sometimes, opportunity arises. With the 2022 NHL trade deadline looming, the Anaheim Ducks decided to sell off their pending unrestricted free agents in order to secure futures that could help their rebuild. Among those pending free agents was defenseman Hampus Lindholm, a former 6th overall pick of the Ducks, and a player the Bruins liked so much they not only acquired his services, but subsequently signed him to an 8-year extension before he had even played a game in a Bruins sweater. It was a huge gamble, but it's a gamble that has paid off in stride for Boston so far. Lindholm is in the midst of a career year where he has been one of the best all-around defensemen in the NHL this season by the numbers. Let's look into them. Barely a year into his Bruins tenure, Lindholm's already made an immense impact on the Bruins and their offensive capabilities. Starting with the most basic counting stats like points, he currently has 7 goals and 32 assists for 39 points through 58 games. At his current pace, he'll probably finish the season north of 50 points, shattering what was his previous career high of 34 points he set back in the 2014-15 season. While it's not mandatory for defensemen to be good at getting on the score sheet, it's certainly a bonus, and the fact that offense is a part of Lindholm's repertoire is incredibly valuable. Teams have to account for him and his instincts, and if they don't, they'll quickly find a puck in the back of their net. So far this season, the Bruins land 35.6 shots on net per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 with Lindholm on the ice. Not only is that the highest by a Bruins defenseman, it's the 13th highest by all qualifying defensemen across the league. Once he jumps onto that ice, be prepared to get peppered with shots. But not just any kind of shots, high-danger shots. The Bruins average about 14 high-danger scoring chances per 60 with Lindholm on the ice. And while he's slightly edged out by his teammate Charlie McAvoy's 14.6, he's still better than roughly 84% of qualifying NHL defensemen in that category. It's honestly unfair that the Bruins have McAvoy and Lindholm on their roster. Both are stud defensemen able to chip in and contribute offensively at a high level. The two not only have the highest expected goals per 60 among Bruins defenders, they're some of the best among all defensemen in the league. And while this has become expected of McAvoy, seeing Lindholm's offensive output backed by expected goals shows that this isn't just entirely a result of good puck luck, but because Lindholm himself is good at consistently finding and or creating the right positions that give his team the best chance to score goals. In fact, if it was mostly good puck luck, Lindholm's on-ice shooting percentage would be a massive red flag. On-ice shooting percentage measures how many goals a team scores over the total number of shots a team takes when a player is on the ice, with 8% being the average historically. In theory, players with an on-ice shooting percentage much higher than the 8% average are producing at an unsustainably high rate and are due for regression when the puck luck dries up over the course of the long 82-game season. This season, the average on-ice shooting percentage among qualifying defensemen is roughly 8.4%. Lindholm's current on-ice shooting percentage, 9.5%. Good enough to be above the average, but not high enough to the point where massive regression is likely. Does Lindholm benefit from the occasional bounce in his team's favor? Absolutely. But between on-ice shooting percentage and expected goals per 60, the message is clear. This isn't production based on luck, this is production based on skill. But if you're still not convinced, maybe we could use a more advanced stat, perhaps wins above replacement, or in this case, even strength offense WAR. WAR uses expected goals models to measure a player's individual impact on their team's scoring chances with them on the ice. And the number that gets spit out is how many wins above replacement that player is worth offensively. So far this season, Hampus Lindholm's 0.79 even strength WAR ranks 8th among all qualifying NHL defensemen, landing him in the company of guys like Damon Severson, Dougie Hamilton, and Owen Power. Among Bruins defensemen, no one, not even Charlie McAvoy, has a better WAR than Lindholm. The Bruins are simply at their most dangerous offensively with Lindholm on the ice. He's no slouch defensively either. Most offensively productive defensemen do it at the expense of their actual defensive ability, but not Hampus Lindholm. The Hall of Famer Paul Coffey once said, "When we've got the puck, they can't score." In theory, Coffey's right. If a team can dominate possession of the puck throughout a game, you'll probably win more games than you lose. In the case of Hampus Lindholm, we'll be using Corsi percentage, a stat that measures how often a team is outshooting their opponents, with 50% being average. Among Bruins defensemen, nobody has a higher Corsi percentage at 5-on-5 than Lindholm. For opposing teams, seeing Lindholm on the ice is generally a sign that you're going to lose the possession battle for that shift, and you're probably not going to be spending a lot of time in the Bruins zone. As a result, on the rare occasion that a team does manage to get into the attacking zone with Lindholm back defending, they better make their chances count. While teams have been able to score about 2.5 goals per 60 with an average defenseman on the ice this season, they're only scoring roughly 1.69 goals per 60 against Lindholm. In fact, Lindholm's 1.69 goals against per 60 ranks him 9th among all qualifying defensemen in the league. He's simply been one of the hardest defensemen to score goals on this year, and honestly, that's not by mistake. Expected goals against per 60 uses expected goals models to tell us how many goals a team can expect to allow with a player on the ice, with the average among defensemen this season being 2.62. Circling back to Lindholm, his 2.23 expected goals against per 60 is the 15th lowest among defensemen league-wide, and he's barely edged out by his teammate Brandon Carlo for the lowest mark by a Bruins defenseman. Expected goals now more than ever have become one of the better predictors of sustainability, and barring some major shift, it isn't far off to say that Hampus Lindholm's high level of play has been built on the back of smart, sustainable defensive instincts. One way to quantify those instincts is even strength defense war. Much like O-War, D-War isolates a player's individual impact on opposing teams' scoring chances and condenses things down to a single number. As of the time of writing, Hampus Lindholm has the 7th highest D-War among NHL defenders, putting him in the company of guys like Cale Makar and Adam Fox. That in and of itself is just mind-boggling. Here is a guy who is in his first full season as a Boston Bruin, and he is defending on the same level as some of the best defenders on the planet. It's no wonder teams struggle so much to score goals against him. He's become one of the NHL's best two-way defensemen. The type of defenseman you have to protect every inch of ice against, because they're that much of a threat even without the puck on their stick. The type of defenseman who just might snag a couple of Norris votes come awards season. Will Hampus Lindholm win the Norris? Probably not, but that doesn't mean we can't appreciate what has been an excellent all-around season. Among all qualifying defensemen this season, only 2 have a 0.5 or better O-War and D-War. Hampus Lindholm is one of them, and the other, the aforementioned Adam Fox. Pretty elite company to be in. Some, however, might be quick to write off Lindholm's success, arguing that anyone who can put on a Bruins sweater could put up great numbers. Except, that's not really the case. Lindholm played most of last season on a rebuilding Ducks squad, and yet he still had the highest D-War and second highest overall WAR among Ducks defensemen. The talent was already there, it just wasn't being fully utilized. If anything, Hampus Lindholm and the Bruins are like a hand to a glove, a perfect fit for each other. The Bruins got a dependable top 4 left-handed defenseman to bolster their defensive core, and for Lindholm, he's gotten the chance to play with some of the best talent in the NHL. It's a union that very well could help carry the Bruins to their first Stanley Cup in over 12 years.